the first thing people need to know is birth is an opportunity for the most extraordinary experience you will ever have, or possibly top 5 anyway, right? So the opportunity is there and it is available and it's free of charge. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, how is it even it's not quite what I want to say, but a fair fight? How is that a reasonable thing to call that education and only give half the information? Hello, Quanta folks, and welcome to episode 10 of Fark the Shoulds podcast. This one is called Birth Becomes Her, and I am Jodi from QuantiMama.
And I'm McGill from QuantiPapa.
And I feel like that was a very arse-about intro, so thanks for your understanding. Bear with us. This is going to be a really annoying vlogcast. If you're watching this one, I literally just broke the attachment point for the camera. So as McGill said in his beautiful high vibe way, the computer camera, the laptop camera is just doing the best it can. And I'm like, right, okay, I'll stop calling it shit and just be thankful that that's working as well. And I haven't broken that too. So.
Well, the camera is reflective of us in life, isn't it?
We're a bit shit.
No, yeah, and we're all just doing the best that we can.
Oh, that's nice. That's good.
Let's
So I'll say I'm a bit shit and you're doing the best you can. I think that's nice.
Yeah, okay, sure.
So McGill's like, okay, so what we're talking about birth tonight. So birth becomes her. I wanted to visit this topic because I think we've danced around a little bit, more so in reference to the QuantiMama birth course, High Vibe Birth. However, I really wanted to have a conversation that honours birth because it's been on my mind for the last week and a half. I was having a chat to a friend the other day, and she's of what we would call childbearing years. And she said something that really took me by surprise. Because you know how sometimes when you talk to people, you kind of go, oh, I can see we're pretty similar. So I just assumed that we would have similar views on it. I just assumed that she would be like, I'm totally going for a natural birth and yada, yada, yada. And what she said to me was, I just want to have all the drugs and then wake up with a baby on my chest. And I was floored. Like, I just went, I just thought, is that a joke? And it wasn't. She was legitimately going, oh, no, I've heard how horrendous birth is.
And that's the polar opposite of what you took into birth. Jodi says beautifully that this topic might have been on her mind for the last, week and a half, but It's been part of our reality for the last 18 or 17 years, I suppose, when we first decided that we were going to have children together.
Yes.
And then obviously having children together, and then the experiences you've had, which obviously shaped this hard to believe reaction with the person that you thought was vibing on the same wavelength.
Yeah. And so then what I thought I'd do in that self-reflection was I would sort of think about where we came from. So before we even got pregnant, to being pregnant, to having the first, to then ultimately bringing the fourth into the world, and then the roll-on effect of that, 5 years later of writing our own birth course. And McGill's instrumental in that stuff too. There is McGill's energy is all through High Vibe Birth. It very much has the voice of the father as well as the mother within that space. That's one of McGill's gifts. We always joked that in a previous life, McGill was a doula because he's amazing at holding birth space, aren't you?
Well, it's one of those things. You've got to show up fully.
Yeah.
You've got to show up authentically, and like it or not, you are 50% to blame.
Well, or you can take 50% of the credit.
Or the credit, of course.
But I think the thing that astounds me is that it's not just a known thing, that birth is, I would have to say, the most the most potentially extraordinary experience you will ever have in your entire life. Like, say you live for, I don't know, 99.9 years, right? So for those 99 years, you have so many different events. And obviously this sort of plays back into the life-changing moments.
It does.
Conversation we had for episode 9. But I'm trying to think what else there is in our beautiful human existence where you can experience the kaleidoscope of emotions, sensations, awareness, and epiphanies than birth.
And not just that. I mean, where else in those 99.9 years do you create life?
Wow. Poignant as always, darling.
It's and look, I get, hopefully we'll head this way with our chat, but
yeah.
When was it hijacked? When was it suddenly,
oh my gosh,
when did we suddenly become afraid of this sort of stuff? When did it suddenly become we were so fearful of something we've never done before that we would do anything we could to go around it?
Oh, and not experience it. I mean, I think that's why I was so shocked. And I don't want to take away from this woman because, in all honesty, I do really believe that women or families should experience birth. I really believe all women and families can have the opportunity to experience birth in a way that feels right for them. But if you're not made aware of how profound this experience can be, like, you're not making an informed decision. And there's a couple of things that come into it which I just find so interesting and really challenging. Number one, the absolute confidence that this woman said, oh, I definitely don't want to experience any of that stuff. And I'm like, birth doesn't have to be painful. That's not true at all. And I know that because I've had the experience. So I am a subject matter expert on this. My lived experience, just sounds like a cliched term, but it is absolutely so true. My lived experience is birth is not painful. It's sensations, and you should notice, it's a really good thing to have big sensations as you squeeze a human outside of your body. Like, that is a good thing to have sensations to be aware of, so you don't suddenly, walk down the street and discover a baby's dropped out of you. However, it's more than that. Like, we're so conscious of trying to get rid of pain, we forget about the other side of it, which is that it can be empowering, it can be joyful, it can be exhilarating, it can be orgasmic. Our experience was that it was ecstatic for at least one of them. It can be, what are some of the other words that you found to describe birth?
It can be a real bridge between yourself and your partner.
Yeah.
Now, so I'll keep going with that for a second. So for us and for our experiences, what we found is that the ability to be fully present, for me, holding space and being 100% immersed in what was taking place. I can't physically do it.
Yes, immersion.
But
I love that.
You're fully involved. You are connected to your partner on a level like you wouldn't believe is possible, and you are literally offering them any strength, all the physical support, all the emotional support, all the spiritual support, all the high vibe support.
Yes.
As they move through each stage. And that's what I see with birth is It's just this real potential to get back down to the absolute nuts and bolts of who you are as a couple, and what you're doing. And that's what we did. We broke it right down. We had other beautiful people around us that supported us. And it was a community, but also an achievement between yourself and I. And I walked away from all of our births with a real sense of, pride is probably the word, and joy about the role that I have played in it.
And ownership as well. Like, you really own the experience, don't you?
And strengthened for me the connection with the end result.
Yeah.
As a child.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it did, didn't it?
I just want to come back, and this is back to people's perceptions becoming their reality.
Yes.
People's beliefs becoming their reality. If you need to change a belief, or you put a positive affirmation in and you work that through you and make that part of who you are, you can change so much of yourself. But the same goes with a negative one.
Yes.
If you are there going, I just know it's going to hurt. I just don't want it to happen. You've already convinced yourself of what your reality is going to be or is most likely to be. And
it's that thing that we were talking about, I think, the other day, about the universal field doesn't assess what you're saying. Like, the universal field hears you. It's paying full attention to you. So it hears whatever it is you think, feel, say.
And then it's going to provide that experience for you.
Absolutely.
It is. Here it is, folks.
It's an instantaneous affirmative feedback, not affirmative in a positive way, just affirming what you are saying. And we were having this conversation about a different topic, but all of this stuff requires discipline. And when I say discipline, I mean the commitment to creating what it is you want, or what it is that the outcome that you desire. And again, that's not to, browbeat people with this stuff. But the reality is, if you give yourself this inner monologue of, this is hard, this is shit, I need to be saved from it, you absolutely cultivate that. And I'm not judging you. It's a statement of fact. It just is what it is, what it is, what it is. And what's happened in society is that those of us who have had positive births have fallen into this sort of silent minority, because I think birth trauma is so, in the Western society, it is so prevalent, and it has become the overwhelming conversation that happens out there. Women have birth done to them. They get saved by it. There is trauma within the birth spaces as well that are done by carers who, to my mind, when they signed up for the gig, weren't intending to create any distress for people, but this industrialization of birth has taken us away from our own instincts. And I'll tell you right now, once you've got kids, your instincts, they kick in high gear, don't they?
They do. And it's interesting you sort of say, I'd say it's almost been a very slow thing that how society has changed. Things are supposed to be easy.
Yes.
It should just happen.
Yes.
It just happens that way, and we've lost that innate trust in our bodies and the people around us, and at the end of the day, the pure naturalness of it. And I don't know about other societies, but Western society definitely now, it seems to be more about everyone wants to share a negative birth story.
Yes, which actually keeps it in the collective field, doesn't it?
Well,
that's right. So that's what I'm saying, is that I think that when you want to say you're looking at birth, and this applies to people who have already birthed and have like children that are fully formed and probably talking back to you, there's an opportunity to heal your own birth experiences as well, because otherwise we keep that trauma in the collective field. And not only do the birthing parents, and I say parents because birth is as much about the fathers as it is about the mothers, right? So every parent that is consciously bringing a child into this world, and even if they're not consciously conceived, they're most certainly consciously brought into the world because the pregnancy is allowed to mature. So that consciousness is there, and there's a couple of factors that are affecting people. So I neither want to exonerate people nor blame them, but I want to bring attention to the fact that if we don't start talking more positively about birth, even if it's a fake it till you make it scenario, then the real impact is going to be felt, and it already has been, by the children in utero, because they are the silent observers that are preparing for their environment, aren't they?
They are, and they're taking all that sort of stuff in. There's the emotions, the feelings, and if you've had a baby, or if you're going to have a baby, feeling them move around when you put your hand on the tummy, feeling the child react to you in utero is something that's, quite profound.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt that they're taking on board a lot of what we're doing prior to the fact that time they even arrive.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So I just want that to be an accepted fact. Children in utero are paying attention. Absolute attention. There's no filter. They're absorbing all of it. And again, it's not to exonerate. It's not to blame. It is just use this information to be
create some awareness.
Yes, and create some discipline. Something that I want to do, and I delight these sort of things. I love putting McGill on the spot. Okay, darling, what I want to do, because when I was having this conversation the other day, as I said, it made me aware, okay, don't be too alcoholic about this, because you had a pretty different opinion to birth when we were having our first. And certainly in comparison to now, that's more warrior energy that I have about birth 15 years, 16 years later.
And 4 births.
And 4 births. Yeah. 8 pregnancies and 4 births. So, we've had a lot of experience with getting pregnant. Hey, baby, at least 8 times. So the thing I want to put us both on the spot, because this just came through now. So this little exercise is what I'd love to do with you, and that is to give our beautiful Quanta community, I guess, a snapshot, 5 words that describe your attitude to birth or pregnancy or whatever when we were just pregnant with Quanta Kid 1 to now.
Oh, wow.
I don't really think about it too much. I just want you to...
The first thing that comes to mind is fear.
Yep.
When we were first pregnant, a little bit of fear, hesitation.
Fear of what?
Hang on. 5 words.
Sorry.
Put me on the spot and then interview me.
Sorry, darling.
Excitement, joy, and... a 5th one. Real, a bit of, it's probably too strong a word, but a bit of trepidation, a bit of hesitation. Because, to be honest, by the time I got to that point in my life, I really knew nothing about birth. I knew it happened, I knew how it happened, I understood the mechanisms of it, but not what was actually involved on turning up and birth arriving, much less what you do after that point.
Yeah. And we concentrate on the birth and we sort of forget about the parenting thing, which is in some ways not a bad thing that we do that, because if you do just roll on as a parent, I always say to people, look, you've had the longest relationship with your baby. So, take all advice with a grain of salt, because no one knows your child like you do. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. Okay, so you've got your 5 things. I guess I was thinking more sentences, so I didn't articulate that very well. I apologise. But the 5 things I really viewed, and I think that the way I viewed or sort of approached birth when we were first pregnant all those moons ago was illustrated by our decision-making. And the reason why I say that is that, we only did birth education classes. We did calm birth, which we found to be tremendous for us, only because it was sort of insisted upon by one of our nearest and dearest at the time.
It was,
yeah. So good old darling Xanthi really pushed us to actually do that, because I was like, don't need it, you're right.
We did go to one birth class at the hospital.
Oh, Christ.
And we made it to about the break at halfway and we left. My God.
We had done calm birth at that stage, but oh my goodness. If we take them, I don't know if hospital classes have evolved or improved since then, but the one we went to at a tertiary level hospital in Melbourne, who ought to have known better, was an absolute disgrace. So
it was it seemed like a real fear-mongering exercise. And it's funny because you take that snapshot there.
Yes.
If we had have just gone to there, it would not be unreasonable for you to have a similar opinion as the friend that you ran into the other day, that birth is going to hurt and it's painful and you just want it over with.
Yeah.
Which was almost what they were touting as what their preferred options were.
Well, a large slab of that education was about what analgesic options were available to you, and not natural ones like water injections. And, water injections are subcutaneous ones. They go just under the skin. But they essentially nerve block that area and can really change sensations felt during birth. But they talked about epidural and gas and like spinal blocks and all sorts of things. And it was like it was like a little smorgasbord of this is what's available for you, and I just thought that was really inappropriate to do that to people who are very susceptible and suggestible. At no time did they talk in a way that was empowering for the birthing couple.
And there's nothing wrong, as part of a holistic education, there's nothing wrong with knowing that those things are there and they're the option, but they shouldn't be the focal point of what's going on. They're the things that happen when it's time for external intervention.
Yes.
Now, when it's time, everyone's got to work that out themselves, right? But making those the primary focus of what to expect and what we are going to do for you / to you really takes away the chance of the power.
Well, they kind of missed the bit where birth can be extraordinary. I mean, that's the first thing people need to know is birth is an opportunity for the most extraordinary experience you will ever have, or possibly top 5 anyway, right? So the opportunity is there and it is available and it's free of charge. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, how is it even it's not quite what I want to say, but a fair fight? How is that a reasonable thing to call that education and only give half the information? I feel like that's a great omittance, and it is a mark on the medical establishment that we don't better inform people, so they have the option to decide how impactful they can be in their own experience. But that's a whole other conversation. What I will do you want to say something? Because I was going to give my top 5.
I was just going to say that a lot of, again, personal self-responsibility or radical self-responsibility.
Yes.
The individual, the partnership that are going to bring a child into the world are also responsible to go and round out their education.
Yes.
And
it's funny you say that, because I've been getting phone calls off this gentleman who his partner's pregnant, and he's been getting in touch with me, and that's really unusual to hear from the birthing father. And he said, oh, look, she's not really aware of what's available, and she's had other birth experiences and they weren't so great, and so she doesn't really know I'm calling, but I want to find out. And that was a really unique experience, because often women drive that interest in finding out what else is available. So I really like what you said there, because he is an embodied example of a man stepping into his fatherhood role and advocating for both his partner and his unborn child, and it's quite beautiful. It's really quite beautiful. Anyway, I want to...
5, darling.
My 5. I really put myself on the spot here because I haven't thought too much about it. I would have to say I don't know what word I would use to describe it, but something like I was nonchalant about it. I had this attitude that we would just go to a public hospital. I said, birth doesn't have to cost anything. We'll just go to a public hospital, we'll use their facilities, and then we'll pop home with, a new family member. I think I was hesitant because I had a lot of vomiting during the pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my pregnancies were marked with lots of vomiting. I think that my experience or my attitude towards birth changed after getting educated, and I started getting a sense of what I could potentially achieve, which was really cool. And that snowballed because I had a back injury at the time, and it started this whole belief system in my own self-healing ability. And so my ability to birth naturally and beautifully had this osmotic effect on how I was viewing my back injury as well, which was pretty cool. I think I was excited about having the opportunity to birth with McGill because I could see him just blooming into this utterly delicious father. He was already a delicious husband and friend, but you just, your enthusiasm was beautiful. You know, you'd hold my hair back as I was spewing over the toilet bowl yet again and get me whatever it was. I mean, the guy doesn't eat McDonald's, but he bought me McDonald's chips all the way through the pregnancy.
And hash browns.
Oh my God, I can't believe I fed myself.
I finished it. I finished the shift and I'd be driving home and I'd ring you and go, do you need anything? And I'd already be parked in the Macca's drive-through to pick up what I had to pick. Yeah, sometimes because I could just see the effect that the pregnancy was having on you and how beautifully you were holding your end up. So anything I could do to make that a little bit easier was a bonus.
Awesome. Thank you.
I do think it's funny because, as Jodi said, I probably haven't had Macca's for 20 plus years.
Oh, and our children have never had it. We wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
And it was the only thing that could settle your stomach that we'd found at that point in time.
Yes.
If we could go back now, we'd probably look at alternatives, but
I don't know if I could be bothered. I just was happy to keep some food down.
Yeah, true. And we were different people then.
I know. I'm way more militant about food now. I'm just trying to think if there was anything else. I think that there was a lot of energy just around this sort of non-committal or sort of laissez-faire attitude. I was just going to
She'll be right, mate.
She'll be right. That was my attitude. She'll be right. She'll be right. Got pregnant, growing the human, growing the eyebrows, growing the eyelashes, doing all that stuff.
I think I held more of that hesitation.
Yeah.
And probably because my mum never spoke to me about the experience of my birth, but it wasn't a positive experience that she had. And she could never, ever, unfortunately, even when I directly questioned her about it, explain to me what it was that had happened or gone wrong or anything like that.
No.
And
she'd buried that one deep.
She had, and it would always be a negative comment or we don't need to know about that. And that was probably the closest thing I'd had to knowing anything about birth.
No, she did say to me at one point she had an out-of-body experience when she was birthing you, in a way that she was leaving her body to die. So there was some kind of near-death sensation, but we never even got to question your dad about it either. No. So that one's gone to the grave.
Well, Mum's take on Dad's role at the birth was that he stood around with the doctors and cracked Irish jokes.
Oh, yeah. So, that would be your dad.
So I don't quite know. Yeah, I know. And I don't quite know. I'm sure that wasn't all that Dad did.
No. She reduced him to a one-liner.
She did, but I just wonder whether there could have been a lot more involvement.
Yeah.
Even though it probably really wasn't encouraged, all those years ago.
Yes, and it's an interesting thing that we wait for the invitation with birth. So this is something that I'm really interested in sort of circling around to now, because if I were to give birth now, I would be far more opinionated about what was going to happen for us and to us and who we had in our posse. And that certainly was illustrated by the fourth birth. So we had a hospital birth because I was like, nah, birth, cheap. Let's just go in, have the baby. It didn't cost anything to get pregnant. So let's not spend too much money on getting unpregnant. And that changed after that first birth experience when I found out about the benefits or lack thereof of continuity of care. And when you don't have continuity of care, as in care providers that know you and know your wishes and desires and your wants and demands in some ways, because you do need to provide consent for everything that is offered and done to you. The absence of that impacts birth. That's just a reality. Women do better with continuity of care. And so that became a springboard for us where we started choosing our birth team. And so by the fourth, We had these midwives and they were beautiful, but our closest relationships were actually with our chiropractor who attended the birth.
Yes.
And our doula, who was just some kind of magic. She was just a magic human being. And we had such a established relationship with these two women, particularly our doula, in the birthing space, because we were birthing at home. So she was intimately aware of our environment and so forth. I think that the experience just sort of happened, and it was so extraordinarily unremarkable. You know what I mean? As in, like, you just kind of go, well, that's just meant to happen. Like, that just unfolded exactly as nature intended.
Yeah.
Didn't it? And so, you know, to the point where we kind of went, oh, okay. Okay, oldest kid, you probably don't need to go to school because we've just given birth. Like, it was that rearrangement of the day. It was like, the human's out of mum's body now, so we can just hang at home.
To put that into context, we had our 3 beautiful older children standing beside the birth pool when number 4 arrived, and they're all dressed, or the older 2 were dressed in their school uniforms, ready to go to school.
Yes.
And
and kids love birth.
They were, or especially our eldest. You talk about me being a doula in a previous life. Well,
he would be an amazing doula.
He's been at every birth, including his own, of course.
Yes.
But
very important to be at your own birth.
Was up for his sister's birth when he was 2.5.
Yeah.
And then his brother.
Yes.
First brother, and then his final brother, and it was, you know, actively wanting to be involved.
Yes.
And that was amazing.
So, and I think that's another conversation. Children at birth is highly criticised without good reason. Give me your opinion once you've had a child at a birth and, you know, it's a birth that you have actively prepared for. I'm not saying, you know, no preparation. It's all part of the landscape of creating a really positive, empowered birth experience. But what I want to do is circle around to your 5 words about birth now that we have, you know, brought 4 children earthside, and 3 of which were home births, and 1 of which you actively caught.
Yes.
And we have written and produced a beautiful birth course that is all about waking people up to their power, or helping them remember their power. So what are your 5 words for birth now?
And we had one of the births professionally filmed as well.
Oh, yeah, we have a birth film too that's used in birth courses around Australasia, so that's cool too.
That was all part of the really taking the power of birth to a whole nother level for us.
Yes.
We
don't do things by halves.
No. I would have to say that birth is the 5 words I guess I would use absolute empowerment, strengthening of bonds on every level between every person that's there.
Yes.
So what have we got? Sorry. Empowering, strengthening bonds, natural, just, you know, almost one of those things where get out of the way.
Yes.
And just be there. And from a male perspective, being actively involved in the birth, just giving that, the giving of yourself, that's actually exhausting to a degree.
Yeah.
But it's the most rewarding exhaustion of anything I've ever done. So, yeah, vastly different look back onto what birth is with our experiences and what we've done.
And it's a beautiful thing to hear you talk about, say, exhaustion, which would ordinarily be considered an undesirable thing. But I think about when you did, say, your half Ironman, like there would have been exhaustion with that. But that's all part of it. Like you take that as par for the course, and that's a positive thing. It's like a mark that you've actually completed it. Yeah, absolutely.
And when I say exhaustion, it's an exhaustion. There's a physical element to it, but there's a mental and an emotional level that is just, you know, when you are providing support to someone. I've said this because I spoke it when Jodi used to speak, used to do birth courses. I'd go and I'd talk to a lot of the males and I would say to them, at some point in your time, in your time in this birth, you are going to hold your partner literally in your hand. And they are going to need everything you've got, and you've got to know when that exact moment is. You've got to be right on board with what plans, what outcomes, what you wish to be using at that point in time. And you need to carry your partner across that little threshold.
Yeah.
And as they move into the next part.
Yes.
And just because I love throwing stories in, Jodi got to transition on our first birth and happily said to the hospital staff and to us, said, "That's it, I'm done. I'll go home. I'll come back and finish this another time, maybe tomorrow." And was ready to basically leave the hospital and go home. And that was a very marked one of, okay, it's really time to step in here. As much as she knew at the time that she couldn't just go home, it was that whole
really
thing.
Wanted to, though.
You really wanted to, but it was my exact time to shine there and say, "Hey, I've got you. Stay with me, darling.
Yeah.
We got this."
Yes.
And working our way through it.
Yes.
So,
and I heard only your voice in that moment. And I think that shows the power of what's possible with conscious birthing and empowered birth education. It shows connection. It shows up in that moment. You can't know how your preparation is going to serve you when the event does, but you'll know it when it happens. You'll really know it. And then on reflection, you'll be like, thank goodness we did that stuff, because that really paid dividends. And I think that's one of the things is, I would say now with birth, when you have had, say, zero experience and only have other people's experiences as your yardstick, or if you've had undesirable experiences, one of the things I will say about birth is it is a leap of faith. But it is a worthy leap of faith. Another thing I will say about birth is it is limitless in its potential, like limitless. It can offer a ripple effect that you won't even anticipate for years and decades after. Birth provides an opportunity to understand how powerful you can be, how incredible your body is, how deep the connection of your relationships are. I would say birth can be, I think birth is extraordinary. It's ecstatic, it's powerful, it's breathtaking, it's time pausing or time stretching. And I would have to say the last thing I would say about birth, it is the quantum field, in the sense that you feel that this 3D reality is not it. Like you go somewhere else when you give birth in a way that I'm saying, not with medication or anything like that. When you go into birth land or your birth world or your birth cave, and you are there, particularly with a strong connection with your partner and practice skills that really bring great peace and help to the experience. When you do that, you understand there is an energy field that is greater than us, and you feel it at a cellular level. And so I suppose with this conversation, I would love for it to plant some seeds in some way so that we can encourage the narrative of birth to move to a more balanced one, where people who are contemplating this experience or healing from their own can find peace with the fact that birth can be or is an opportunity for one of the most extraordinary experiences in life. And whatever it is we may have experienced, it's not our place then to remove that opportunity for other people. So if you need motivation, think about those babies in utero who quite rightly can have the most extraordinary experience. Is there anything you'd like to conclude with?
No, I think we've gone through it all. There's so much more to birth, and there's so much more that men need to be involved, or partners need to, really be involved, to step up into that space and really hold your partner and be such an active part of the whole process. So
I would love to have a conversation around birthing the father. I think that would be a really rich conversation, and one that is so absent in our society. I mean, if we think that birthing mothers don't have much of a voice, birthing fathers most definitely don't have much of a voice at all. And that is something that I would love to remedy.
Oh, sounds like we've got our next podcast, number 11, coming right up.
Stay tuned. Thanks for joining us, beautiful people, and we'll look forward to joining you again next time.
Bye, Quanta folks.
See ya.